Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today: Quit Your Job and Raise My Kid. After that, my employer stole my stuff, so I made him pay for it. And after that, you're dating my son. You must do as I say. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to find a job. I already have a job. I sit here and listen to you read all day. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Quit your job and raise my kid. My sister-in-law, brother's wife, is a real Karen. High maintenance and demanding to the extreme. She will demand things from my parents, to which they say no, and then she gets mad, refuses to talk to them, and takes it out on my brother until he calls up my parents to ask they apologize because it's making his life horrible. Years ago, when they had their first kid, my niece, my parents were elated at their first grandkid. Sister-in-law's mom isn't in the picture, so my mom was very attentive to sister-in-law, helping her shop for baby, being a supportive shoulder, even offering advice and insight into pregnancy, labor, and birth. Sister-in-law lavished in the attention and things were golden, until sister-in-law went back to work. I was at my parents' house visiting when the phone rings. Dad answers, listens for a few, and then simply says, "I'm not getting in the middle of them. Talk to your mother." And he hands the phone to my mom. She listens a bit and then says, "Well, I'm sorry, but I'm just not okay with her plan. I'm not going to apologize and I'm not quitting my job. That's the end of it." And she hangs up. Of course, I had to demand details. Sister-in-law was going back to her job and called my mom up a day or two prior to this to discuss childcare. She told my mom about the daycares she had checked out and how expensive they all were and what a struggle it was going to be. But then she had a brilliant idea. My mom should become a full-time nanny for niece. Of course, she would have to quit her job, but since she's only 5 years from retirement, it's not a big deal. My mom graciously informed her that while she loved watching niece, she was not going to quit her job. Cue a hissy fit. But the only other person who could do it is sister-in-law's 90-year-old grandma, but she could only watch niece at her house because she's 90 and she doesn't drive, and she has too many pets, 3 of which were sister-in-laws that she dumped on her. "Daycare is so expensive. Don't you want quality time with niece?" Mom suggested maybe sister-in-law find a cheaper daycare. No, Montessori daycares are the absolute best. Mom pointed out she's never even heard of that, so there's no way her childcare would be Montessori. Mom suggested sister-in-law go back to work part-time and then daycare would only have to be part-time and thus cheaper. No, if she wants to stay on track for her retirement goals, she needs to go back full-time. Mom ran out of advice and finally just said, "Well, and I think you're going to need to lower your standards or find another option because I'm not quitting my job and that's final." And she hung up on her. My mom was not happy at how hard I laughed, and of course, when I had my kid a few years later, I jokingly asked how close she was to retirement because I needed a nanny. What would you do in this situation? Would you quit your job to become a full-time nanny or not? Please let us know. The spouse that you choose to start a family with is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. You owe it to your future kids to choose a good spouse, so please stop marrying Karens. My employer stole my stuff, so I made him pay for it. Since I was a kid, I was fascinated in computers and electronics. During school, I had no social life. I just stayed at home and I was learning stuff. I was going to generic high school that should prepare you for university without any specialization, but there were few people with same interests as me, and our IT teacher was really supportive of us. When I finished high school, I already had a job as a programmer and had a few years of experience in the field. I also was experienced with electronics and even worked on a few contracts for the factory in town, involving creating machines for them. Other engineers came up with an idea on how the machine would work. My job was to put their motor, sensors, wire it up, and write programs for the PLC to control it. I moved to a big city and started university, so I lost my programming job in the city. I was looking for a part-time job while living off of my parents' support. Things changed when my friend got an escape game voucher for 5 people for his birthday and took me with him. The escape game had cool, magic stuff, like you placed objects in a shelf and all the pictures in the room fall off the walls, etc. While we were there to solve puzzles, I was mostly interested in these magic things, making theories about how they made them and thinking how I would do it. When the game was over, I saw for a moment their technical room, and at this point, I was like, I want to work here. I sent them my CV, and as I was overqualified for this job, I was accepted after the first interview. I was young, naive, and stupid, so they just used me. My hourly rate was, after tax, an equivalent of $8.50. To put in comparison, cashiers at big stores here make $6.50 plus benefits. First few months were awesome. I was paid for doing my hobby, and the owner loved me, as his previous tech guy, referred to as tech moron from now on, was, compared to me, just dumb. I'm not bragging, I swear. He did not come up with almost any original designs. He just found something on the internet and was skilled enough to read the schematics and somewhat copy it. But he had big gaps in his knowledge. Once he told me that I can't build a battery-operated circuit that will be powered while the battery is charging, as this would cause the battery to explode. When I told them about charging regulators and how it's not an issue with his iPhone or laptop, he just told me I was hired to help him and to buzz off. Over the time, tech moron started to realize that I'm just smarter than him, and his ego could not handle it. So he decided from now on to make my life miserable. For example, the owner tasked me with replicating a device that they already have in one game as he wanted to put it into another one. I spent a week just messaging Tech Moron, asking him for the schematics and source code, calling him, and he just never replied. Then I decided to do him over. I came up with an improved design and built it. When I was showing it at the next meeting to the owner, who was very happy with it, Tech Moron just yelled at me for not using his design and wasting time on reinventing the wheel. After some time, the owner realized what was going on and hired another tech guy, Tech Senior from now on. But he cannot fire Tech Moron as he had all important source codes and designs at his laptop. And because of a bad contract, it was not property of the Escape Game Company. Little did we know that in the future, he will not hand over most of the designs and codes, and we will end up rewriting it from scratch. The company was also franchising. We just took a game we already had running, made an exact copy, and installed it in another location. We then provided support while they were paying us license fees, usually a small percentage of their profits. The owner was a typical manager who thought 9 women could deliver a baby in a month, and it showed as the company grew. Eventually, Tech Senior was made my boss as he had much more experience in electronics, while I was more oriented on programming and on-site support for game masters if something broke. We didn't give a hoot about Tech Moron, as at this point, he just showed up once a month, did almost no work, criticized all we already did, and went home. Things were going really well, so we hired a few electronics students to help us. The building department, which was making props, like special wooden tables that we would use to hide our magic into, also grew. Things were looking really good, until one meeting about new franchise client. The owner told us what he needs. We, tech guys, talked to prop guys, went over all the requirements, and told him we need 10 weeks for it. Well, 8, but we actually accounted for things going sideways, as this date would be on the contract. Usual stuff in healthy company. Next week, next meeting, he told us that the client does not want to wait, and he put 5 weeks in the contract. His reasoning was we are doing the same stuff as before, and now we have more people, so it will go faster. We worked hard, like really hard. There were weeks when I just went home for 8 hours to take a shower and sleep for a bit, then went back to the workshop to work on stuff. It was hard, but we managed to finish on time, and I got some sweet money in overtime. But this was a mistake. Now we showed him that what he wants is impossible. So the next contract went over the exact same deadline crap, more overtime. I remember having almost no social life, just working the whole week, sometimes sleeping at the workshop and being stressed out. Then, every Friday, I just went to a pub with a few friends, had drinks to relieve the stress, and slept through the whole weekend. Then comes a Monday and we start over. Eventually, I went from, I love this job, to, I don't give a hoot, and I wasn't the only one. Our performance dropped and we started missing deadlines. Did the owner account for it in the contracts? Nope. Repetition makes perfection, This time you can do it faster, was his reasoning, and he just kept signing more and more contracts, dumping the crap on us. I remember the one meeting where he asked us about the status of the Project D, as the deadline was next week. Well, we hadn't even started working on this, as we had our hands full with Project C, which was started later because we didn't finish Projects A and B on time. This is how far it went. Deposits from new contracts were used to pay fines for old contracts. At this meeting, I realized I had just had enough. Of course, our job was not only franchising. We had our own games that needed to be maintained, and we were doing that all the time alongside with franchising. What was the biggest issue with all the games was the control software. It was a crapload of simple-purpose scripts driving all the Raspberry Pis and Arduinos in the game. But it had one UI presented to the game master so he could control all the props in-game, override them, etc. At least in theory. But oh boy, it was buggy. Sometimes not working at all. Sometimes you wanted to shine lights on objects to give the players a hint, but instead it opened doors to the next level, etc. It was no universal. Simple requests required massive changes. Lots of overrides were not implemented correctly. One day, the owner finally agreed to my demands and allowed me to rewrite all of it. It took me a few months, but I created Universal Engine that could handle all of the crap game designers were asking us to do. Was easy to expand, had error protection and recovery tasks. Now, if one prop stopped responding, you just opened the debug page and clicked restart. This was a game changer, as previously the game master had to switch off the power, and sometimes that was not possible during the game. And my biggest achievement, I created easy scripting language which was used to describe the game workflow. The game master now had a crap load of working controls and options to interrupt predefined tasks and change the flow. But that barely happened, as the game was now almost automatic and he was just there to give hints. I was not comfortable running this software on the Raspberry Pi that was there for the previous control, and I wanted a better hardware for that. My request was always denied by the owner, but the games manager wanted the new software working ASAP. To this point, we were always just testing it from my laptop, so I decided to lend them a few PCs. Some time ago, a friend from a big corporate pulled a crap load of Dell Optiplex workstations from eScrap. They were working fine, had Intel i5 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, decent onboard graphics. You could buy them refurbished for about $200. The company just had no use for them and wanted to go over selling them, so they just dumped them. I had a stack of 20 of them at home, just collecting dust. I took a few of them to my work, and the boss agreed we will settle it later. So I just emailed him a list of all my hardware that was used in the games. 5 PCs, some Wi-Fi routers, old tables, some monitors, and other stuff I had collected, mostly from e-waste, fixed it, and had no use for it. Of course, I did not tell them I got them for free and was expecting them to pay me for it. Fast forward, I was fed up with the franchising deadlines and got a few job offers that made me realize my real price and that they had been taking advantage of me, working for almost nothing. But I was waiting. In the next month, my software was deployed in the remaining games. Tech Moron was out of the picture for a few months now. Tech Senior had some programming knowledge and was able to use my scripting language, but had very little understanding about the insides of the complex engine I wrote, which was now being developed for over a year. I had results, I was important, and I had demands. I scheduled a meeting with the owner where I wanted to present the list of all of the wrong things and what I want to do about it. It all came to one single argument. I'm not happy here, but you need me. So you will fix these issues and give me a raise, or I'm leaving. And I will stand my ground. Recruiter from big IT company I wanted to work for messaged me on LinkedIn a few weeks prior, and I already went to the interview, so I had an escape plan prepared. The future looked bright, and I was ready to make it happen. The day of the meeting came up. I was in a good mood until there was a nasty accident in the workshop. I, being the youngest one here, not responsible for the mess, was tasked with cleaning it up. I had an argument with the workshop manager about me being a programmer and not a radioactive waste cleaning lady. But in the end, I just broke and started cleaning. Halfway through it, almost throwing up from the smell, I just snapped. None of this would happen in a decent IT company. I went to my office, packed my stuff, and just sat there playing games, waiting for the owner. When he showed up, I told him about all of the issues. He agreed with some, But when we got to the end, I just told him that today was the last straw and that I'm leaving right now. I was employed as an independent contractor so they could save money on taxes, and my contract had nothing about my time there. I just told him that I will send him download links for all of the files I have, as the contract stated that they are owned by the company. He begged me to stay for one more month as they were behind on many deadlines. I just said I will think about it, and I left. On my way home, I called the recruiter and told him I accept the job and can start next month. The next day, I just made a big archive of about 150 gigabytes of files, backups, etc. that I had, uploaded it to my server, and emailed the link to the owner and tech senior. I then spent the next 2 weeks in bed watching Netflix and ignoring calls. For the last week, I showed up to help clear up some things, hand over my projects, asked about the computers and the other stuff I lent them. He told me they would pay for it, and then left. I was lucky as heck. The next month, lockdown happened, and a month later, they were forced to close all of the games, making their income go to almost zero overnight. This, I believe, was the reason they never paid me for my stuff, even though I repeatedly asked until I got tired of it. Time went by until a few weeks ago, when I saw the tech senior was looking for a new job. I messaged him and we talked. He told me that they survived by doing private events for companies until they could open again a month ago. All the other tech guys except him were let go, but he managed, until he got into an argument with the owner. He did not tell me much details, but the owner wanted something either impossible or really expensive. When he presented a cheap alternative, the owner just snapped and fired him on the spot. He tried to reason with him about not firing him until he can teach his successor and find a new job in the meantime, but he was fired on the spot. A week later, I got a call from the owner. He hired the younger tech guys he fired during lockdown and wanted me to come and answer their questions, mostly about the engine I wrote. I agreed, but as we were planning the meeting, I was suspecting he just wanted me to do it for free. When I brought up the hourly rate, he just told me we will solve that later. He hung up and never called again. The day of the meeting came. I was waiting in my car outside the workshop, waiting to see if he would call and ask where I was, but he didn't. A few days later, I parked next to the warehouse where all the games were held, with a Yagi antenna in my car. Surprise, surprise, the Wi-Fi routers I lent them were still there, with the passwords unchanged. I connected to the Wi-Fi and poked around the network. All the PCs that I lent them to run the software on were still there, still running the Linux server I installed there, and looking at the logs, they were still used to control the games. I wrote a script that runs on boot, rolls a dice, and then deleted the whole drive. I was connected to my Wi-Fi router, making changes to my computer, formatting my drives. Then I drove away. A few days ago, I got a call. Apparently, when the Monday shift came in, the control system for one of the games was not responding. The browser was showing timeout. They decided to reset power for the whole rack where all of the PCs were multiple times, hoping it would start up, because turning it off and on again always works. When they decided to stop trying, they found out that all 8 games were dead. The new, old tech guys figured out that the drives probably died, but had no knowledge about my system, so they could not set it up. When I asked about Tech Senior, the owner made some excuse about him quitting and not wanting to work for them anymore. I told him I was happy to help. In the end, this used to be my dream job, but I now work for a big company. I don't have much time, and it's expensive. I can come over to set it up, but my hourly rate is now $150. He talked me down to $100, which was still about twice as much as I make now. When I arrived, I checked the PCs, pulled out the email I sent him a year ago, and told him that these serial numbers matched those on the labels. I told him I'm happy to find my lost stuff, took first PC and took it to my car. We had an argument. I told him that I'm either taking all that stuff or he's paying me something like $2,400. He wanted to call the police, but I had the proof that this equipment was mine. He eventually agreed and I got to work. All my software was still in the bit bucket, even with a few modifications Tech Senior managed to make alongside with all of the config files and scripts with the game workflow that Tech Senior was periodically modifying and backing up, so it was a pretty easy job. I got it all working and then stayed for a few more hours, explaining some stuff to the tech guys. I printed the invoice and I left, tired but satisfied. Yesterday, a nice sum of about $3,600 landed in my bank account. From what they told me, all 8 games were dead for 3 days. Each game costs between $80 and $120, takes 1 hour to finish, and half an hour is needed for preparation. So there are 12 slots every day, averaging on $9,600 income per day when fully booked. This is of course just the income. Profit after paying all the rent, wages, electricity, consumables used in the games, etc. is much lower, but I don't know how much. Before lockdown, about 80% of slots were booked during the week and 100% during weekends. I just like to think I made him lose $23,000, not counting the angry customers which were forced to reschedule. Dollars just because he was a jerk. If he paid me for my stuff or did not fire his only tech guy, none of this would have happened. Have you ever had a boss who tried to do you over? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. You're dating my son. You must do as I say. My sister is married to a man with a stay-at-home mom who has decided that adulthood, through middle age, is still too early to stop over-parenting her kids, and is also very opinionated about what everyone else should be doing, especially when it comes to parenting, because she's wonderful at it apparently. To keep the peace, people in my family let her get away with it. I do not. This greatly upsets her. Back when our kids were in elementary school, and before Sis and hubby were formally married, we all lived in the same neighborhood. I'd go to my sister's for a visit, and afterwards we'd both walk to the school to pick them up at the end of the day. The mother-in-law insisted on coming too. Sis didn't think it was a hill to die on, so I kept my mouth shut. One day, her overly critical highness decided that she didn't like my kid's coat, and that we needed to fix that, meaning that I would have to spend my money to buy another one that met her approval. I loved that coat and didn't give a hoot about her preferences, so I told her that there was no need to talk about it. She kept it up constantly for almost a week because comments like, "I don't care if you like it or not, I'm not your kid, and even if I were, I'd still tell you to back off," were too vague for her to get the hint that I wasn't going to be pushed around. I tried ignoring her, tried changing the subject. She was just fixated. So finally I turned around and told her flat out that I do not give 2 hoots in space what she liked and that it was none of her business. We're not even related. She got fed up with my stubbornness and advanced on me, poking me over and over. "I don't care if you're related to me or not. You are my son's girlfriend's sister, and you will do as I say." I warned her to stop poking me, and she started screaming and sobbing, telling everyone in a 2-mile radius that she was being harassed and threatened just because she was trying to be helpful. I laughed and walked on while she was being comforted. An hour later, I had over 20 calls and texts from people telling me to apologize to her to keep the peace, suggesting strongly that I should go out and buy another coat immediately so that she wouldn't be upset anymore, even one threatening to catch me outside. My sister has been with her husband for 25 years, so I have tons of stories about this lady. Like one about the time my nephew and niece couldn't come to my daughter's birthday party because I refused to invite her and my sister's boyfriend's mother's nephew's son. Or the time my baby shower was canceled because I preferred to have my friends as guests instead of my sister's boyfriend's mother's mother, plus mother-in-law, plus sister-in-law, almost all of whom I'd never met. Or the time there was a Royal Rumble elimination-style verbal cage match, 1 against 12, because I decided to use my tax refund for dental care instead of a TV. Or the family blow-up, because I refused to give her half of the bottles of shampoo I had bought at half price. She messed up. This one lady has been at the hotel before and became notorious because her kids were rowdy. I'm in the back office and I hear her check in at the front desk with the front desk attendant. She signs the registration card for the 2 queen rooms for 3 nights already, but asks how much a 2-queen suite is. He tells her it's $189 and $80 price difference per night. It's too much money for 3 nights, she says. She tells the front desk she'll take the suite for the first night, but move to the cheaper room tomorrow for the other 2 nights. Sure, that's no problem. Tomorrow morning, I'm working the shift, and I see her in the morning. I ask her if she will be moving to the cheaper room today or staying in the same room. She tells me she will stay in the suite room. Okay, no problem. The following morning, I'm working the shift again, and I see her. Ask her the same question. She says she'll stay in the suite room. Sure, no problem. Not sure why she would have been insistent on moving if the price is too high, since she took the room for all 3 nights, but okay. She checks out after the 3rd night with no problems. Well, except her kids threw a pool chair into the pool and stole our door padlock. She's already not in good graces with the hotel. A few days later, I'm in the back office and I answer a phone call. It's her. She's wondering why her bill is so high. I explained to her that while she was checking in, I was in the back office and heard the entire exchange. I explained how she verbally agreed to the rate change and wanted to move to the cheaper room for the 2nd and 3rd night. I tell her I'm the one who asked if she wanted to move, and she declined twice, thus locking the increased rate. She says, "The paper I signed has a different rate. You're scamming me. I'm not paying more than what I signed." Oh, I see where this is going. She thinks she can save money by doing this scam. I tell her I'm not reducing the rate. I heard her verbal agreement. I explain her verbal agreement with the rate change is enough. If she had a problem with the rate, she should have moved or not taken the suite room, and she should have seen her folio we provided under her door and inquired then before checking out. She wasn't buying it. It wasn't a pretty argument. She says, "I have a future reservation there. What can we do so this situation doesn't happen again?" Oh, heck no. I look up her reservation and I tell her, "What we can do is cancel your reservation because we're not renting to you anymore. You're banned." "You can't do that," she says. "Oh, yes, I can. I'm doing it right now. You're not welcome here anymore." I then hung up on her. A week later, I get a chargeback on my desk from her for the difference of rate. I explain the situation to the credit card company and win the case. She has yet to return. Am I the jerk for not photographing my cousin's wedding, even though I'm free on the date she's getting married? So I, 38, male, work as a photographer. I've been in this game for 10 plus years at this point, and in most cases, I love my job. I say most cases since it's really dependent on the client. I mainly do weddings, but I also do cosplay, events, and product photography. But the big bucks come from wedding photography. Now that everything is opening back up where I am, weddings have been going on full swing, and it has been busy. Lucrative, but very busy. I'm solidly booked. Almost. This will be relevant later. Up until November of this year. My cousin, 22, female, is getting married in August of this year, during a time where I'm giving myself and my team a very much needed break, about a week in early August, paid so that way they're not losing out on any income. My aunt contacted me a couple of days ago and asked if I'm available to be the photographer at her daughter's, my cousin's, wedding on August 7th, which came as a surprise since I didn't even know she was engaged, let alone getting married so soon. Also, I didn't even get an invite. I informed her that, unfortunately, no, I'm not available as I have booked that time off and already informed my team and planned on heading out to the cabin to get some much needed R&R. My aunt understood and wished me a relaxing vacation. My cousin, on the other hand, blew a fuse. She contacted me a couple of hours later and said that I have no love for family and that I should take pictures at her wedding. I offered that I could ask my team if any of them would be willing to do it. You know, make some extra bread and to help build their portfolio. Then she asked if they would do it with a family discount and said that she can't afford an obnoxiously expensive photographer. So I asked her if, even if she thought I was available, she'd expect me to do it for free or discounted. She said, "Yes, because we're family." And to that, I laughed so hard and told her she was delusional and rescinded my offer of asking anyone on my team if they wanted to take the job. Since then, various family members have contacted me saying that I should just do it, for family. Even my own siblings and parents said I should just do it. I informed them that no, I booked the time off, and even if I was to do it, I'd expect to be paid. From that bit of information, lots of them have retracted their want of me doing it. Guess my cousin didn't inform them that she expected it to be for free. Even my aunt called me and apologized for her daughter's behavior, but one person, whose opinion I actually care about, my mom, still says I should do it for free, since family, and said, "Only jerks don't help family." I know in my heart I'm not the jerk, just wanted some internet strangers' perspectives. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is their cousin? Please let us know. "The cousin's a total Karen. You shouldn't do anything for her. I'd probably go out of my way to ruin her wedding, but that's just me." You're not gonna believe what happens in this video, so come watch it next and we'll see you when you get there. And please support our channel by joining as a member, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And want us to make a video for you? Just head over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.